Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Molly's Salon. This is our weekly program every Thursday evening where I interview innovative thinkers and creative firebrands. We're living through a critical time in American history, the COVID-19 pandemic, and a vital social justice movement led by Black Lives Matter. Our guests are a variety of artists and leaders discussing new ideas, how they're coping with the coronavirus and making positive social change, as well as showing us glimmers of hope for the future. And my guests this week are singer, actress, performer Kate Baldwin, artistic director of Kenny Leon's True Colors Theater Company, Jamil Jude, and executive director of the Japanese American Citizens League, David Inoue. Kate Baldwin is up first, and Kate was seen most recently on Broadway opposite Bette Midler, David Hyde Pierce, and Gavin Creel in the hit Broadway revival of Hello, Dolly, for which she's nominated for the Tony, Drama Desk, and Outer Critics Circle Awards. She's earned multiple award nominations and critical acclaim for performances over the last several years after coming to national attention in 2009 with Finian's Rainbow. And arena audiences will remember Kate from South Pacific and The Music Man. And there she is.
Hello.
It's so great to see you, Kate.
Nice to see you too.
We have a long history together.
We do.
We do. When we worked together all those years ago on South Pacific, it was 2002. And I knew you'd be a star. And South Pacific was also the first time I ever directed a musical, because when I was a young artist, I was in the camp that thought musical theater was not serious enough. And I learned by directing a musical that musicals are deep and subversive. So talk to me about what you love about musical theater as a genre.
I think the thing that draws me to musical theater is how it's a complete full body experience, right? It requires you to use the tips of your toes up to every hair follicle you've got. It's the energy, and it's the vibrancy. It's the most vibrant art form, I think. And I think, Molly, you were one of the people who said that people who work on musicals have this energy and positivity, and it's fun to be around those types of people. And I just happen to have my South Pacific script from 2002.
Oh my God.
I was in my basement cleaning out some things. We're, sort of purging. And I started looking through this script because that show was incredibly meaningful to me as well, because it was the first time I sort of was encouraged by you to trust myself as an actor and be the leading lady that I always wanted to be. And it's interesting you say that you weren't sure or thought that maybe musicals weren't as deep as other things, but I'm looking at your notes here. So I have a whole bunch of notes here. So this is a note from Cockeyed Optimist, which everybody thinks that they know that song, right? It's just this little ditty that Nelly sings right at the very beginning. And I have the words falling on your face. I hear the human race is falling on its face. I have the numbers 9/11 right next to it, because you said it's, and I hear the human race is suffering, is in despair and denial about itself, and can we look for something deeper? And we started talking about, I think in our conference we started talking about 9/11 and the people who were lost then, and I thought, whoa. This story has more depth. We are talking about a war. We are talking about loss. We are talking about the fear of never seeing your loved ones again. So Cockeyed Optimist took on a whole new meaning.
I love that, Kate. I love that. That's one of the wonderful things about the big classic American musicals, is they have great and everlasting meaning if you are brave enough to dig into them. And when you dig into it, suddenly all of it comes to the fore. And I remember so well working with you on the project, and the power of you as a performer and your ability to be able to take in a lot of information, and not just information, but to really drive it as a character. And also, you fall in love with people on stage.
Me personally?
For real. Yeah, but not in real life.
Yeah.
But because your character needs to be in love with someone, you do that. And you then protect the other artists that way. No, a lot of artists don't do that, Kate. And you
Why
do.
not? Why do it then? You know, I find other people endlessly fascinating. That's the whole reason I became an actor, is because I wanted to understand why people did what they did, and how and to sort of live a bigger life on stage versus my very sort of sheltered and normal life off stage. You know, I'm so curious about humans and our connection with each other, and yeah, I suppose I do fall in love with everybody on stage.
Well, it's also that you're a great storyteller, and I know you came out of a great storytelling tradition at the university, because Kate is one of the few actors that understood what a lighting cue was and how it was part of the whole story. And you understood why a prop was part of the whole story, as opposed to some actors that are just put me where you want me. You understood that it's all part of the whole. And how did that happen for you?
I remember freshman year at Northwestern, the chair of the theater department was named Bud Beyer, and he gathered all of the freshmen together in this thrust theater and said, "You are getting a degree in theater. You're not getting a degree in acting. You're getting a degree in the whole schmear, the whole banana. Like you're gonna have to understand how to hang a light. You're gonna have to understand how to design a costume. You're gonna understand sound cues, and you're gonna have to take classes in all of those things, and you're going to have to do the manual labor associated with all of those things." In fact, I didn't graduate on time because I had been so busy being in shows that I'd forgotten to schedule one of my crews. And so I actually didn't graduate in June. I graduated in August because I had to continue my run crew and do sound crew for I think it was Summer and Smoke, and I had to press all those fireworks cues. But to have a complete understanding of how the story gets told and how all the parts work together, and there's nothing better than that kind of collaboration.
I'm going to skip ahead because we only have a couple minutes, although we did just get a really interesting question, which is about what is Cockeyed Optimist in the middle of COVID-19. And I think it is something we need to think about because it is really perfect for right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
RNH
yes.
knew what they were doing.
Yes.
So I want you to talk, because you're one of the featured artists on Arena's Artist Marketplace. Can you talk about the marketplace, what you're offering and what your experiences have been?
Well, Steve Masueko came up with this brilliant idea of gathering artists associated with Arena Stage that Arena subscribers and audience members might know a little bit about, and asking us what we could provide, goods or services. And I am providing services. I can provide a voice lesson, a meet and greet, that could be live, or a pre-recorded, if your friend has a favorite song and it's their birthday, or it's your wedding anniversary and you'd like to hear Goodnight My Someone, or if they like Joni Mitchell or Billy Joel, or I'm even putting together some Puccini, I will sing them a song and greet them. And it's a unique way to show somebody that you're thinking of them and that you care. I can also do an entire concert for you too. with pre-recorded tracks. And if you have an event coming up or you have clients you need to entertain, this is a fun way to do it. And my husband is very technologically savvy and adept. So we've figured out how to make it sound good and look good too.
I love it, Kate. And I can attest to the fact that having Kate sing a song to your loved one, she did a song for Suzanne's mother, my partner Suzanne's mother, who's in a nursing home, and she adored it, and for another friend and for a couple birthdays, and it's thrilling, Kate. So thank you, and I love seeing you, and I can't wait to see you in the flesh.
Me too. Thanks, Molly. Love you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Jamil Jude is a director, a producer, a playwright, a dramaturg. He self-identifies as an artist plus. Jamil feels most at home bringing socially relevant art to the community. He's the artistic director at Kenny Leon's True Colors Theater in Atlanta, Georgia, as well as co-founder of the New Greece Festival. He served as associate artistic director at True Colors from 2017, 2019. He was a national new play network producer in residence at Mixed Blood Theater Company for 3 seasons. And before that, a new play producing fellow at our own arena stage. And I used to love to run into Jamil in the hall because he would greet me in a particular way.
Let's see if we get the high five and then a pound at the end. Good to see you, Molly.
Great to see you, Jamil. You know, I'm so proud of you, Jamil, all the work that you've been doing all over the country. And I'm really curious about where you're taking True Colors in these ever-changing days.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's most important for us is that while we feel like we're paused and we can't gather in person, that we still can go about the process of making theater. One thing that's been really important to me as we move to see what could True Colors be in the future, we recognize that we had a really unique situation. Here we are rooted in Atlanta, what many people think of as a Black Mecca. We are a Black organization. So we have an opportunity to develop plays inside of a soil that no other theater company in the nation really can speak to. Especially with our audience base. So I'm really looking forward to doing more commissioning and developing of new writers because we seem to be able to develop plays, maybe not the same way, but definitely there is some efficiency of developing plays via Zoom.
That's so great, Jamil. You know, Jamil, you also were a former participant in Leadership U, which was a one-on-one program funded by the Mellon Foundation and administered by Theater Communications Group. And Arena's Deputy Artistic Director, Seema Swayko, also participated in the mentorship program with me. Tell us how that shaped your philosophy as an artistic director.
You know, I think what was important for me at the time working at Park Square, I was really interested on we were finding ourselves in a moment where we recognized that the way we had been doing business in the field, centering a particular narrative and then using that to diversify on the fringes, we were starting to lose interest, that audiences that had come to expect that type of experience when they got to the theater were starting to dwindle. And audiences that desired a different experience were feeling like they were being left out of a conversation. So I spent my time really focusing on, well, what's that balance of how do you bring in new stories and new storytellers while not trying to alienate completely a core audience that had been supporting the theater. So I spent a lot of time just trying to figure that out. And then ultimately when I decided to become an artist, or when I got the opportunity to become an artistic director, I kind of had to throw that all out the window because I was working for more of a culturally specific organization. But I still think those values and skill set that I learned benefited me. And I believe it benefited the organization that I was working for.
Jamil, you're also a parent. You have a beautiful daughter, Journey, with your wife. And how is being a father changed your perspective as an artistic director?
Yeah, I think it's increased my capacity for love and what that means, especially around love is patient. And the way I work with artists or what I need from staff members, I think maybe in my 20s, I believed the only way to work hard was to work 60 hours, was to overexert yourself. And when you burnt out, you burnt out, you know, take the time and get back up. And I think I've just really tried to find, well, what are ways in which we can show each other grace, and we are all working towards the same goal, and we aren't going to get there at the same time. But I think that's okay. I'm now more comfortable with saying that that's okay and being able to lead people through that, understanding that I'm going to ask for grace at times. Like, hey, today I may not have it, y'all. I'm exhausted. My daughter wanted to stay up all night or she wasn't feeling well, but I have to be able to give that grace to other people. And then, you know, and some of the things that we're hearing too about some of the pressures and challenges of the rehearsal hall, and people not being able to feel like they can do their best work, whether it's working moms, whether it's, you know, parents who are trying to balance health, childcare. You know, how can I create a space that is more open and allows for parents to actually be part of the process in more complete ways? So those are probably the two biggest areas: patience and what can I do to create more equitable and accommodating rooms.
I love what you said about patience equals parenting. And Seema's saying you can get more Jameel on True Colors podcast. So people should listen to that. Jameel, Arena's been partnering with American University on an artistic director intensive designed to support new and emerging theater artistic directors. There's a lot of programs to train managers, but none to train the artistic side. And I've been so thrilled that you've been part of it. Can you talk about that and what your experience has been?
I think the biggest part of it is that you're in a cohort of artists and we're all going through the same thing. You know, our organizations look different, our cities look different. So we all have our unique qualities that we bring to it. And as leaders, we're different. But to be able just to bounce ideas off of people, Molly, I don't have to tell you that this position can get pretty lonely, right? Like oftentimes, the majority of the times, we're the only one artistic director at an organization. So having to run that race and knowing that people are on their own tracks running it with you is extremely helpful. But also to be able to, you know, listen and have conversations with you and with other veteran artistic directors to be able to share, like, hey, here's what I've learned on my journey, and here are some of the mistakes I made, but here are some of the successes that I had as well. It reminds you that in this job you're going to fail, but with a cohort or with some dogged determination that you can get back up and that you can keep on going. So it's nice to be buoyed up by having that type of cohort, especially the way that the folks at American University have structured our time together so that we're asking these questions in this specific protocol. It's been really fun.
Yeah, I mean, I love what you said about the loneliness of the artistic director. And it makes me curious about you, Jameel. Where are you finding joy these days?
Yeah, is the most random moments. I mean, you have a 2-year-old in the house and you'll be frustrated and she's gonna run all over the place and not want to, you know, go to the bathroom at the time that you want her to, but then she'll pick up a book and she's memorized the book. So she'll just flip the pages and tell you and read everything that's on there. And you can't help but smile. So those are my moments of joy. Anytime Journey just interrupts my day with something completely unexpected has been joyous.
That's great. What's a final piece of advice you have for theater goers who are mourning the loss of theater right now, of not being able to be with the live event with artists?
Yeah, you know, artists are still telling stories. Seek them out, connect with them, and, you know, do what it takes in your community to keep each other safe so that we can gather back again, right? Like, follow the guidelines, wear a mask if you can, please, so that we can go back and have theater. Because I miss being in that rehearsal hall and the vibrancy. Molly, you always say that you want to run a company like we do a rehearsal hall, and I miss being in those spaces. So seek artists out, follow us on the podcast if you can, but, you know, take care of yourself, protect yourself so that we can get back out there and get gathered again.
Thank you so much, Jameel. It was beautiful to see you and talk to you.
I'll see you soon.
And to see Journey, we'll see you soon. Bye-bye. David Inoue. He's the executive director of the Japanese American Citizens League. Founded in 1929, this is the oldest and largest Asian American civil rights organization in the United States. They monitor and respond to issues that enhance or threaten the civil and human rights of all Americans and implement strategies to affect positive social change, particularly to the Asian Pacific American community. So I'm so pleased to have David with us on the show today. And there he is. Hi, David.
Hi, Molly. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. So I'm so curious to ask you, what role do you think the arts can play in supporting systemic change in society as a whole? What's our role in the theater from your perspective?
Well, I think Arena Stage is a perfect example of it. I mean, the plays that you guys put on are just amazing as far as raising issues of social justice. And for example, for us in the Japanese American community in particular, a couple of years ago, you all did Hold These Truths, the story of Gordon Hirabayashi. And what's wonderful about that is that it exposes Asian American stories, or as many other stories that you put on, to largely a more white community versus us all talking about it within our own community. And that's what's so important about whether it's a theater or any entertainment, to present those stories of diversity for a wider audience.
You know, that production of Hold These Truths, because it was about the Japanese internment camps and one hero's journey, opened so many audience members' eyes that either didn't know the story because they were younger or remembered the story again. And we're working now with the potential of having a radio version of that, so that people will be able to go to Arena Stage and hear it. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm curious about how Japanese American Citizens League is responding now to Black Lives Matter. What kind of changes are you looking at? What do you see in the future?
Yeah, and for us, I don't see a lot of changes in what we do, and we've always tried to work in solidarity. And the one lesson of Japanese American incarceration during World War II was that no one stood up for us. So I think one of the things that Japanese Americans really try and emphasize, that it's important for us to always stand up for others, and to use our experience of the unconstitutional incarceration of Japanese Americans to speak out for civil rights for others. You and Kate were talking about 9/11 earlier, and when after 9/11, standing up for Muslims, more recently for immigrants as well. But Black Lives Matters and we've always had the strong support of the Black community for Asian Americans, for Japanese Americans. So it's our turn to return that. I think one of the interesting parallels is that this has kind of opened up the discussion now about reparations. And the wonderful story for Japanese Americans is that we actually did obtain reparations for what happened to us during World War II. So there's actually a bill before Congress that's been introduced for the past 30 plus years, HR 40, and it's finally gaining some traction. But it's almost a direct copy of how Japanese Americans were able to pursue our redress and reparations.
Now, do you work legislatively with the work that you're doing, David?
We do, yeah. So we obviously work a lot through the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, which is largely obviously Asian American members of Congress, but also those representatives who represent districts that have large APA communities as well. Great,
great. Now, I know you have children, and I'm curious, in the middle of the pandemic, how are they thinking? What are their fears? What are their ideas? What's been wonderful for them and what's been awful for them within this?
Well, I think it's interesting because I have an 11-year-old and an 8-year-old, and they've both responded very differently to the situation. Our 11-year-old actually seems to be doing pretty well. She's able to chat with her friends on Zoom or whatever. But the 8-year-old wants that physical contact, the play time and everything. So it's been a lot more challenging for him. But I think what was interesting was because we have, at the same time we have COVID going on, obviously we have Black Lives Matters as well. So obviously because of what I do, I've actually gone down to some of the protests and things. And he was actually really upset because we've been talking about how dangerous COVID was. But then he hears that I'm going to be going down amongst these crowds and that, well, isn't that going to be dangerous as well? So it really is, it really forces those discussions about sort of the relative harm that can be caused by different things. And the discussion that the threat to Black lives is actually a greater threat and a more mortal threat than what COVID probably is to our families. So that was why we were sort of prioritizing what was more important.
You know, David, I think it's so interesting because I know you've been with the health field as well, but people thought that there was going to be a tremendous spike after people went to the protests. But in general, people were wearing masks. And in general, we didn't see some of the spiking that we saw, you know, when people would go out to a bar and not have their masks on, or go out to a party in the backyard and not have masks on. Because the majority of people really were pretty careful. Did you find that was true in the protests?
Yeah, I think when I was down there, I would say probably 90% plus were wearing masks. Not everybody wears them properly all the time, which I have a master's in public health. Obviously, I'd be looking at people sort of like, you need to be actually covering your nose with that mask. But I think that has played a big part. And the challenge is there's so much we don't know about this virus right now. And we're kind of flying by the seat of our pants right now, learning as we go along. But as you mentioned, I think masks are emerging as one of the largest, most important ways to prevent transmission of this virus. Obviously, the fact that the protests were outside contributed as well. Generally, when you're outside, that there's more chance for it to dissipate without you coming in contact with it. So I think there were a lot of things that kind of played into suppressing those numbers. But hopefully we can get everyone around the country to get on board with wearing masks.
I know, please. I mean, we could probably squash a part of this if everybody wore a mask. And Seema's just saying, tell us about the art behind you. What is it?
So the two ink ones are, my daughter had drawn those. She attends Washington Yu-Ying, which is a Chinese language school. So I think she had done those at school or at some sort of event. But this other piece of artwork is by an artist in Cincinnati who attends the church that my mother goes to there. And it's called, I think it's called Everybody Dance. And it has all the great religious leaders from all the different beliefs together dancing. So
beautiful, beautiful, gorgeous. And your daughter is quite an artist. She's really good. I just have one more quick question for you, but you probably would have a really long answer, but I think we've only got about a minute left. I know that you work for not-for-profit organizations in the health field. So how has that experience shaped your personal response to the pandemic?
I think it's probably made me a lot more cautious in some ways, just because I do know sort of the seriousness of this, and also wanting to set a good example too, as someone who has an MPH, that it is important that we all do model good behavior. And my master's was actually in health behavior, health promotion. So, and this is what I studied about: how do you get people to model good behavior and to do what we would like them to do. Obviously, when I was doing my master's, it was more focused on tobacco cessation. But now we obviously have some other behaviors that we need to be promoting people to engage in.
Well, thank you so much, David. Thank you for coming on and for talking to us. It's really been a pleasure to talk to you, and hope to see you at the theater. before
I'm
too
looking
long.
forward to it. And thank you for all that Arena Stage does to uplift minority communities.
Absolutely. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. My salon next week will feature remarkable members of Arena Stage's production team: Sean Malarkey, carpenter; Deb Nash, costume craftsperson; and Lance Pennington, associate properties director. You're all going to want to tune in to this. Today's gift of art is a fabulous rendition of Carrying the Banner from the cast of Disney's Newsies, which performed at Arena just last year, actually about 8 months ago. Now, the whole cast gathered on their own remotely and put together this piece as a fundraiser for the Capital Area Food Bank. There's been a shocking article that was in the Washington Post today from the Capital Area Food Bank that says that upwards of 250,000 people in the DC region may be food insecure in the near future because of COVID-19. Now, that's about a third of our population. Already, we have raised, because of the video, enough for 3,400 meals, and that has been donated because of the video. One of the hard facts about hunger is that it's much more widespread than many people realize, and especially in a time like this when unemployment is high. Now, the video is only available for another day, so enjoy it. And if you can, give a little donation to the Capital Area Food Bank and help them out with meals for the food insecure in our area. Thanks so much, and see you next week.
Hey, that's my cigar.
You'll steal another.
Hey, look, it's bath time at the zoo.
I thought that I'd surprise my mother.
If you can find her.
Who asked you?
Hey, papers ain't moving like they used to. I need a new selling spot. Got any ideas?
From Bottle Alley to the heart.